There was a time when I woke up thinking that I could have done more, but I didn't. And every time that could have tore me in half. We all have our own list of things we put off. Calls, promises, dreams. But here's the paradox of life. The path to greatness doesn't begin with grand gestures. It begins with small discipline done today. One, simple. The one you could do right now. And at the end of this video, I'll show you how this single action can start a process that will turn your life around so completely that you'll never say to yourself, I could have again. Have you ever caught yourself thinking that life passes somewhere between I'm going to start and I should have started long ago? It's as if we stand between two shores. On one is our intentions, on the other our results. And in between them lies the river of procrastination. We look at it, stand still, gauge its depth, search for a bridge, but never jump. We wait for the perfect moment, the right mood, more favorable circumstances. We convince ourselves that tomorrow it'll be easier, more convenient, more right. And each of those tomorrows becomes just another day without action. There was a time when I too lived imprisoned by those tomorrows. I worked but didn't grow. I earned but didn't evolve. I called it busyness, but in truth it was an escape. I was running from myself, from responsibility, from discipline. Then my mentor, a wise man named Earl Schaff, told me a sentence that changed the course of my life. Jim, don't let one day without discipline become the beginning of a new habit. And he was right, because that's exactly how we lose our lives. Not in one single moment, but day by day, when we let small things control the big ones. You see, life doesn't fall apart all at once. It crumbles quietly. From unnoticed decisions, small compromises, tiny refusals, from I'll skip just one workout today, from I'll call my mom tomorrow, from it's fine, I'll have one more cup of coffee and work later. Everything great begins with something small, and everything broken also begins with something small. And here's the main paradox. Just as we can destroy ourselves through little things, we can also lift ourselves up through those same little things. One small act of discipline done today can change the course of tomorrow. When I started to change, I didn't have a 10-year plan. I had no money, no connections, no degrees. But I had a pen, a notebook, and a decision to do at least one thing each day that would bring me closer to a better version of myself. I started waking up earlier. I started writing down my thoughts. I started tidying my desk to clear my mind. Small things. So small it's almost funny to call them disciplines. But those very things became the foundation of everything that came later, because discipline isn't tyranny. It's a form of respect for your own future. We often think discipline is something cold, harsh, mechanical. But in truth, it's the highest expression of self-love. Because when you're disciplined, you're telling yourself, I'm valuable enough to be consistent. I'm worthy of finishing what I start. It's not about rigidity. It's about dignity. It's about not abandoning yourself halfway. If you've ever felt torn between who you are and who you could be, that's not a crisis. That's an invitation to start building from within. And the first brick of that house is a new discipline, a small, ordinary, quiet act you can do today. Write a letter. Call someone you haven't spoken to in a long time. Start a journal. Leave your phone aside for the first 30 minutes after waking up. These are little things, but within them lies great power, because that's how a new person is born. Not through revolution, but through evolution. And here's another paradox. People wait for inspiration to act, but the truth is, inspiration only comes after action, not before after. It's like lighting a fire, first the spark, then the flame. So if you're waiting to feel like it, you might wait for years. But if you take that first step, even a tiny one, the motivation will follow. Because motion creates energy. My mentor used to say, Jim, you can't change the seasons, but you can change yourself. And that's the essence. We can't change the world, but we can change the way we respond to it. We can't change the past, but we can change how we use today. And if you start right now, without the perfect moment, without inspiring music, without public promises, you'll see that the power of discipline has been within you all along. It was just asleep. In this video, I'll show you how to awaken that power, how to turn a small action into a habit into character, and character into destiny. And when you reach the practical part at the end, you'll have a tool you can use right away in your kitchen, your office, or even in your own thoughts. Because discipline isn't punishment, it's the highest form of freedom. And today we begin its path, step by step, with a simple but unshakable decision to start. Small actions that create big changes. There's one truth I didn't understand right away. No one falls into an abyss suddenly, and no one climbs to the top in a single leap. Both the fall and the rise consist of small steps, only the direction differs. When I realized that, my life began to change because I understood discipline isn't about heroism. It's about direction. It's not about being strong all the time. It's about being right, at least today. I used to be the one who almost started. I planned, I dreamed, I wrote down strategies, but everything stayed on paper. I had a list of things I needed to do, but beside it, an even longer list of excuses. I thought I lacked opportunities, money, connections, but later I discovered I was missing the most important thing: small disciplines. Not brilliant ideas, but daily habits, because they are what shape the future. We don't suddenly become successful with Reshapes. We simply stop postponing the obvious. My mentor once said, "Jim, don't look for a big breakthrough. Look for a small shift." And he was right. You don't have to change everything at once. Just change one moment of your day, and that moment will start pulling the rest along. Change how you wake up. Change how you talk to yourself. Change how you begin your morning. And you're no longer the same person who went to sleep yesterday. I remember the day I first decided to wake up an hour earlier, not for work, for myself. The first weeks were awful. I hated that alarm clock, that silence, that cup of cold coffee. But then something strange happened. The silence started to speak. In it, I began to hear my real thoughts, not the ones fed by the noise of the day. And in that hour, new decisions were born, new ideas, a new sense of self. One morning, I wrote in my notebook, if I can control my morning, I can control my life. And that became my rule. You see, life doesn't reward intentions, it rewards actions. Success doesn't like theory, it loves practice. And discipline is the tool that turns desire into results. It doesn't require talent, it doesn't ask permission, it simply acts every day. And each day is like a brick in the wall of your future. You may not see the result today, but when you look back a year from now, you'll see the temple you've built with your own hands. People often say, I don't see progress. And I ask, are you looking for it under a microscope or in the mirror? Because true progress is invisible at first. It's like a seed underground. It grows even when you can't see it. But to see the sprout, you have to persist. You have to water it. You have to stay. Each day of discipline is another drop of water nourishing your future. I've learned to treat small actions as great events because each one shapes your character. When you do something, even when no one sees, it builds you. When you keep your word, even when it seems insignificant, it strengthens your will. And when you choose to do at least one right thing, even when you don't feel like it, that's the moment your mind overcomes weakness. Once, while speaking to a young audience, someone asked me, Mr. Rohn, how do you find the strength not to give up? I smiled and said, don't look for strength. Create it. Start with a small victory. Win the morning and the day is yours. Win the day and up. And you've won the week. Win the week and you've built a habit, and a habit becomes destiny, and it's true. People wait for inspiration, but it only comes to those who are already moving. When I began practicing these small actions, there was no magic around me, but something far more important changed. I began to trust myself. And here's what I realized. Discipline isn't just about success, it's about self-respect. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, even the smallest one, you rebuild trust within. You tell your mind, I can rely on myself. And that becomes your new foundation. Each day without discipline is a step into darkness, but each day with it is a step toward the light. You may not see the peak right away, but you'll feel yourself climbing. And with every small action, you move closer to the moment when you'll look back and say, yes, I built this life myself. And that's when you'll understand the true secret of success. Greatness is not born great. It grows from the small. So if today you're looking for a sign to start, here it is. Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait for convenience. Just do one small thing that breaks your circle of habits. And do it not because you have to, but because you can. Because from this moment on, the new you begins. How discipline rewrites self-esteem, imagination, and freedom. A strange thing happens when you perform the right small action every day. A new voice is born inside you. Not the one that criticizes, not the one that whispers, you'll fail again, but a calm, steady, and deeply practical one. I can rely on myself. That's where the real alchemy begins. Because success isn't just a bank balance or a title on a door. Success is your internal agreement with yourself, and discipline signs it every day. You no longer ask for inspiration to move, you move and inspiration catches up. You no longer wait for approval. You approve of your own actions by the very fact of doing them. It's a quiet but profound re-engineering of self-esteem from am I good enough to every day I do what matters. When I was young and inconsistent, I thought my problem was circumstance, the wrong market, the wrong people, the wrong timing. But then I saw the obvious. It wasn't the economy that failed me. It was all my little unspoken, I'll do it tomorrow. And when I finally faced them, not only my behavior changed, my vision of myself did too. I was no longer the guy who tries. I became the person who does imagine the difference in energy. Which person does the world respond to more? The one making excuses or the one who shows up on time, delivers precisely, and returns tomorrow? Self-esteem grows not from compliments, but from consistency proven by your own actions. Now, about imagination. Most people use it against themselves. They picture the worst outcomes, chew on fears, and recycle doubts. But imagination can become the engine of discipline. Try this simple exercise. Vividly imagine what your ideal self looks like after 90 days of small actions. Not in vague terms, specifically. What time do you wake up? What does your desk look like? What's written in the first lines of your journal? Which 2 calls have you made before 10 a.m.? How does your body feel after regular walks? Why does this work? Because the brain loves finished pictures. When you give it a clear image, it starts finding ways to take a step toward it. And every small act of discipline becomes not punishment, but a bridge to that image. You're no longer dragging yourself forward. You're being pulled by the magnet of your own imagination. People often tell me, Jim, but life is chaotic. Kids, work, business trips, exhaustion. I answer this way. Chaos isn't an argument against discipline. It's the reason for its minimal version. Even on the hardest days, I look for a core, one action that keeps the system alive. 10 minutes of reading, one kind phone call, 5 lines in a journal, a quick tidy up of my workspace. Why? Because discipline works by inertia. A little is better than nothing. And a little every day makes I've lost all momentum again impossible. You're locking in the ship's course with a single turn of the wheel, and that's enough to keep the storm from blowing you back to the old shores. Here's another trap, believing that discipline takes away freedom. No, true freedom begins when you create boundaries, by you and for you. Look closely. Who's freer? The one tossed around by social media, emails, and others' urgencies each morning, or the one who's already decided that their first 30 minutes aren't for sale? Discipline is the wall you lean on to scale the summit. Without it, you slip. With it, you rise. That's the secret. Small rules don't confine you. They free your attention for what truly matters. Let me share a short story. I used to be late to meetings by 5 or 10 minutes. No big deal, I told myself. Until one partner, extremely punctual, smiled and said, your 5 minutes cost me half a day of focus. That evening I wrote a new rule. Arrive 10 minutes early. Always. It's a tiny thing, but it changes everything. You enter the room while others are still gathering. You breathe. You settle in. You see people, not the clock. And believe me, the world quickly notices those who arrive early. Reputation begins with details. Sometimes you'll stumble, forget, slip. In those moments, don't dramatize. Don't call it failure. Call it a pause in rhythm. And return. The science is simple. A broken streak isn't canceled if you resume it tomorrow. Too many people quit on day 10 because they missed day 9. I ask something else. Be kind but demanding. Forgive the mistake but never forgive the refusal to return. And one more important turn, surround your discipline with context. If reading is hard, put the book where your eyes can't miss it in the morning. If you're avoiding a tough call, write it as the first task after coffee and prepare your opening line the night before. If time keeps slipping away, set a 25-minute timer, work with full focus, then rest honestly for 5. These aren't tricks, they're loyal friends of your willpower. Willpower loves backup. And yes, I haven't forgotten our promise. At the end comes the practical part. We'll build your first ladder of small disciplines for 7 days, give it a name, set 3 midday anchors, and write 5 self-assessment questions on a scale of 1 to 10. But before we get there, remember this. Discipline isn't a battle with yourself. It's an alliance with your better self, daily, quiet, and deeply practical. You're not opposing yourself. You're making an agreement for steps that make the future inevitably better. So hold your direction. Picture clearly who you're becoming. Choose the minimal version of action, even amid chaos. Sign your morning agreement with yourself in silence. And when you feel like postponing, yet remember, you're already the person who does. Now, let's move on. In the next block, I'll show you how to complete this inner reconstruction with the third element, the character that holds course even against the wind of doubt. And yes, practical tools are ahead. We're almost there. Character, the quiet engine that pulls you through doubt. There comes a moment in every journey when knowledge and intention are already enough. But strength seems to falter. You wake up early, stay focused, take your small daily actions, yet inside, an old wind rises. What if this doesn't work? What if I end up back where I started? That's when the deciding force steps onto the stage. Character, not loud, not flashy, without posters or fanfare. Character is your invisible yes, the one you sign every day, even when no one is watching. It's what turns discipline into a way of life, and a way of life into results that no longer need to be proven with words. When I started climbing up from the bottom of my 20s, I had nothing to be proud of. I couldn't buy confidence, couldn't borrow consistency, but I could build character, show up on time, keep promises, and not lie to myself in small things. It seems boring until the world starts responding. Doors open not to loud knocks, but to calm reputations. People trust not speeches, but the traces of yesterday's actions. And if someone asks me what character is made of, I'll answer simply, of small decisions carried through to the end. There's a common mistake to think character is innate, like eye color. In truth, it's sculpted from choice. Every time you postpone a do it to tomorrow, you're voting for a certain version of yourself. Every time you act today, you're voting again. The version you vote for most often is the one that wins your life's elections. Character is the sum of those votes. And the good news is the count resets daily. Today, you can change the score in your favor. But let's be honest, doubts won't vanish. In your most crucial moments, your mind will whisper an old script. Wait, what if... For years, I've relied on one simple rule. Act by your values, not by your mood. Mood is fickle. Values are steady. If your value is honesty, you tell the truth whether you're tired or inspired. If your value is respect for time, you wake up on time in rain or shine. If your value is responsibility, you finish what you start, even after the applause fades. Values tell you what to do when desire goes quiet. That's how character works. It doesn't ask about the weather, it listens to the compass. I remember a deal that almost fell apart. Everything was going well, but one night I was tempted to slightly embellish a few numbers on my slides. I thought no one would notice, and it would make a stronger impression. I closed the laptop and walked around the block, arguing with myself. Then a timeless thought came to mind. Don't let short-term gain destroy long-term trust. The next morning I presented the numbers as they were. The deal went through, not because I was brilliant, but because I was consistent. Character saves where tricks destroy. There's another forgotten force, patience. Discipline without patience is like a runner who sprints at the start and collapses on the second lap. Patience is the willingness to collect interest on your small investments without demanding dividends every day. You plant today, water tomorrow, protect the next day, and only then harvest. Trying to pull the sprout to make it grow faster leads to an empty field. Patience is quiet, but it's what makes your movement inevitable. Someone might say, Jim, that's slow. What if I'm late? Let me answer with a paradox. The slowest path is running in circles without character. You spend years in bursts and retreats, promises and collapses. Character shortens the distance because it eliminates wasted math. Fewer dramas, more action, fewer random decisions, more repeated steps. And when you meet your reflection a year from now, it will surprise you, not with loud victories, but with the calm gaze of someone who knows they can trust themselves. I often repeat a phrase that once put my life back on course. Work harder on yourself than on your job. In the context of character, that means your job can build a career, but character builds a destiny. A job can end. Destiny is who you become through the work. And here's something important. Character doesn't oppose pleasure, it purifies it. When you rest after fulfilling your duty, the taste is entirely different than when rest is escape. Joy earned through character carries no trace of guilt. Will you stumble? Yes, I did too. The key isn't perfection. The key is returning. On my hardest days, I used a simple formula. Release guilt, take responsibility, restore rhythm. Guilt paralyzes, responsibility mobilizes, rhythm heals. Don't scold yourself too long. It's wasted energy. Return to one small action. That's an investment in tomorrow. We're almost ready for the practical part. There, you'll receive concrete steps for the first 7 days, anchors for midday focus, and 5 self-assessment questions. But before that final turn, I want to leave you with one thought I once wrote in my notebook. You don't have to change the whole world this week. You only have to stay true to your course today. That's character. When you're shaken, it steadies you. When darkness falls, it leads you. When the noise grows, it reminds you, quiet steps are the loudest across the distance. So gather everything we've discussed, small actions, renewed self-esteem, the power of imagination, the boundaries of freedom, and patience. Add character. And before you appears a road that no forecast can control. In the next section, we'll turn that road into a tangible route. And yes, the promised practice awaits just around the bend. Now let me pause for a moment, not for a break, but for a check-in. Because talking about discipline without personal involvement is like a gym machine without any weight. Nothing moves. So let's do this together. Don't turn off the video. Don't postpone it for later. Now is exactly the moment when we're not just listening, we're building. Because here's the secret. Discipline is formed not only through action, but through honesty with yourself. I want you to imagine a scale from 1 to 10. 1 means I'm barely holding myself together. 10 means I'm fully in control of my time, thoughts, and actions. Now I'll ask you 5 questions. Answer quickly without overthinking. The first thing that comes to mind is the truest. Question 1, how consistently do you do what you promise yourself? Think not about big promises, but the small ones. I'll get up at 6. I won't check social media this morning. I'll finish this chapter. If most of these fall apart, your score is closer to 1. If you follow through even without motivation, give yourself an 8 or 9. This isn't a judgment, it's a mirror. Question 2, how often do you feel proud of your small victories? Discipline grows not from tension, but from joy. If you only notice big results, you're robbing yourself of fuel. A person who knows how to celebrate tiny wins doesn't need motivation. They are their own applause. If you've forgotten what it feels like to raise an eyebrow and say, "Well done," even after a 10-minute run, remember it now. Question 3, can you finish when it's no longer interesting? That's the test of character. When enthusiasm fades, discipline begins to speak. If most of your projects remain half done, be honest with yourself. Because boring doesn't mean unnecessary. Success favors those who finish even when the sparkle is gone. Question 4, how do you react to a setback? Do you spiral and lose a week or simply reset the next day? Remember, failure isn't a fall, it's a moment of recalibration. Disciplined people don't punish mistakes, they correct them. If you can pause, exhale, and return to rhythm, score yourself high. It's one of the rarest skills, the ability to continue after I slipped. Question 5, how often do you control your mind instead of letting it control you? Think of today. Who made the decisions, you or your habits? Did you choose when to check your phone, or did it happen automatically? Did you choose which thought to dwell on, or did it sneak in by itself? Your answer here measures your true power over yourself. Now that you have your 5 numbers, don't rush to average them. Look at the lowest one. That's where to begin. A low score isn't failure. It's an entry point into your new discipline. That's where we build. Because anything that doesn't work isn't a verdict. It's an invitation. Now, a small exercise. Imagine yourself 30 days from now. No one knows your plans. No cameras, no likes, just you, your morning, and your small steps. Picture yourself waking without inner argument, finishing a task no matter how little time remains, feeling calm, not because you did everything, but because you didn't betray yourself. That feeling of quiet pride, that's the energy of discipline. Not loud, but indestructible. Now promise yourself not perfection, but honesty. If tomorrow something goes wrong, don't start a drama. Just return to one small step, not 3, not 10, 1. That's the formula for strength. One step many times, and one more request. After this video, don't rush away. Pause for a minute. Look at your answers. Maybe even write them down, because tomorrow morning I want you to see them and say to yourself, here's where I start a new page. You can do it right now. Without promises, without fanfare, just decide quietly, because all great changes begin not with on Monday, but with now. And if this moment touched you even a little, that's the sign. It means movement has already begun. It means new discipline has already brushed against your consciousness. Don't lose it, because today's impulse is tomorrow's confidence. So write one word in the comments, starting, not for statistics, for yourself, to see how many of us there are, those who chose not to wait. And when you type that word, you've already taken the first step. Because discipline always begins with a decision, and that decision is right here inside you. Discipline that leads to freedom. You know, my friends, each of us has 2 lives. The first, the one we're living now. The second, the one that begins when we finally realize we only have one. And that moment of realization, it's always painful, but it's also the key. Because when you truly feel how quickly the days slip away, you can no longer afford the luxury of waiting. You can no longer make peace with half living. And that's when discipline steps in, not as chains, but as a key that unlocks the door to your freedom. Remember this, discipline is not the enemy of joy, it's the source of it. Without it, there's no music in your work, no harmony in your soul, no peace in your heart. When you begin to master yourself, the world stops mastering you. When you take ownership of your time, for the first time you feel what real freedom is. Not doing whatever you want, but having the power to do what's needed. And here's where the highest form of confidence is born. Calm. The calm of someone who doesn't chase, but walks steadily, who doesn't promise, but acts, who isn't dependent on circumstances because they create them. You no longer need external validation. You simply know you show up every day without fanfare, without noise, but with a deep sense of inner strength. And that strength grows not from the crowd, but from the quiet moments where you keep choosing yourself again and again. I know what I'm talking about. I was once the guy who thought discipline was punishment, until I realized it's the only form of love you can prove through action. Because love without action is a dream, and action without discipline is chaos. When I finally learned to discipline myself, I watched everything around me fall into place. Work, people, peace, meaning. Not because the world changed, because I did. So today, I want to leave you with just one question. What are you willing to do tomorrow to stay true to yourself today? Not 100 things, not dozens of plans, just one. Small, honest, consistent. Because that one act will start the next chapter of your life. And a year from now, when you look back, you won't recognize the person who once doubted. You'll say, this is where it all began. With one action I didn't postpone. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until everything's ready. You're ready. And the world is ready too. All it takes is a decision to act. A small step taken today is always stronger than the perfect one you plan for tomorrow. So if you're hearing these words, don't just listen, pause, exhale, and say quietly, I'm starting. Because, my friends, there is no better time than now, and no better place than where you already stand. And remember my favorite phrase, and the one that once turned my entire life around. If you want life to get better, you have to get better. That's where true discipline begins, and that's where your new life begins.